All right. Today, welcome very much to everybody who's joined us today. My name is Adam Penna, and I'm here to continue the conversation in additive manufacturing and 3D printing. And today we have Scott Volk joining us from CAM, K-A-M, which is Keselowski Keselowski Advanced Manufacturing. And also joining us today just to talk a little bit more about what they're doing over there and how life's been since COVID-19. Scott Volk, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's actually interesting that you tripped over the name.
Yeah.
You know, that is a pretty. We take pride in that differentiating factor. You know, many companies in this landscape are purely additive, and you know, we really have strived to build ourselves as a balanced design to production company. So that's really where that comes from, and as part of my sales pitch, if you will, is I constantly point out that it doesn't say Keselowski Advanced Manufacturing. It says Keselowski. Doesn't say additive manufacturing.
Right.
It says manufacturing.
Back to yeah. Well, it's good. I know I met Brad when he first came into the facility down in Austin, Texas, when he was looking around to see all the additive technologies, and it was a pleasure meeting him then. And I know that also his team had a big win on Monday, so congratulations on that side for Penske pulling off one of the first races back from COVID. Man, that's awesome. That was really cool.
That was pretty awesome. Yep.
Yeah. So congratulations. I know you're in charge of strategy and innovation over there, and it's been how long you've been over there for the last close to 6 months now, or how long?
It's about 6 months now. Yep.
Yeah, so a lot of change going on, and I'm sure with the current few months, it's been very interesting there with how things have played out with COVID-19. How have you been seeing things? Obviously, you're in the shop today. Is that been typical over the past couple of months, or how have things been working out there?
I've been back in the shop for about a week now.
Okay.
You know, during this period of time, I was actually one of the few employees who was able to commit to not being in the operation, but most of our operation was fairly untouched. I mean, you know, we're considered an essential company, and I know that's kind of just a buzz term now, but we were fortunate to have enough projects going on that deemed us essential, and so most of our staff really wasn't impacted by that. We did a lot of things. Another fortunate fact is we have a lot of square footage here, and you know, we're young, so it's not all full. And you know, Brad's really put in the time to build a really beautiful facility. So we have, you know, really nice office structure, and we were able to split up our employees amongst all these other empty offices that we have available. So, you know, guys were all separated from each other, and we weren't really working that close. So, you know, we're just fortunate to have that kind of a facility to be able to do that, and it worked out. But yeah, I was working from home. You know, John Murray, our president, was working from home. You know, and with Brad and his other job, you know, it adds a higher level of risk for us, because, you know, he's one of those guys that if he gets sick, it could really be a game changer, right? So him not racing, even though, you know, our funding doesn't necessarily come from his wins, but it definitely trickles down and has an effect.
Yeah, the Keselowski Advanced Manufacturing. You guys do everything from the additive, the metal part of additive manufacturing, but we have CNC machining, design engineering, powder analysis, mechanical testing, post-processing, metrology, and quality control. I'm reading it off the website. You guys do have a lot of different tools there. That's an amazing facility for sure. Is it? How many square foot is the building now?
70,000 square feet.
Wow. Yeah. So a lot of good space in there, and a lot of machinery to get things done. And is most of the projects that you've seen in and around, is it aerospace and automotive mostly, or what do you guys see as most of the projects that you're working on?
Yeah, I'm actually glad you asked that, because one of the misnomers that we're dealing with right now is, you know, because of Brad and his background, there's an automatic assumption that, you know, predominantly we're in the race world, and that's what we do, is make race cars and race parts. But to be honest, the automotive world or motorsports world for us is probably maybe 10% of our business. Most of it is, you know, defense related, aerospace and defense, space, you know, those are our main markets.
Yeah, that's well, that's what's growing out there right now, and I know that having that focus is allows you to do a lot of things that people aren't seeing that are behind the scenes. Has there been anything that's been changing internally with COVID? Are you guys taking on any extra projects due to the pandemic, or is it just business as usual at this point?
It's pretty much business as usual. I mean, we did, we jumped in and helped in the effort of getting the face shields and things like that out. We do have a plastics machine here, an Ascenium machine. So we did, we donated on that portion as well. We're still working on those because this machine isn't as fast as some of the other machines out there. And so, we're still working on those. Those are being put out. But for the most part, our business has been pretty status quo. I mean, we're still moving like we were. Actually, I mean, a lot of people I've talked to have had some struggles with, companies they're doing work with and not being able to get projects kicked off and things like that. And I think for us, because of our maturity level within the market, being newer, as compared to like some of the other companies that are already more mature, we were able to utilize this time to reach the contacts that are important. And those people were still working from home. And so we were able to get, NDAs in place and contacts, connected and capability meetings to happen. And so, the next step now is audits and things of that sort. So for us, the timing really kind of worked out really well.
Yeah, there's a lot going in with starting up that process there. I know that it takes a lot of time to get things settled. So it's good to see that you guys are ahead of the curve of getting some things done. Is there on the metals side? I know you work with the metals machines, but is there anything on the post processing or around it that you see as part of Keselowski's setup that is more of gives you more of an edge on some of the other contract manufacturers out there?
Yeah, I do believe we do. Our one key component we have is CT scanning in house, and so for
Nice.
additive,
Yep.
we are able to analyze parts on and be a little more critical. We're able to verify from a FOD point of view as far as aerospace is concerned, and some other sectors as well. We're able to use the CT scanner to verify that parts are clean inside and out. Which really there's just no other good way to do that to verify powder removal. On the other side of that, our actual CNC equipment is pretty special too. Some of the advantages we have because of Brad's, other job, he has sponsors and things like that. So we actually get a little bit of favor in those ways. So Mazak is, our entire shop is full of Mazak equipment, which is one of his sponsors. And so that helps. Snap-on toolboxes all over the place. Those kind of things help us as far as an organization. And so one of the advantages we also have is with those equipment, we have 7-axis machines with pallet changers, things of that sort.
Yeah.
So we're able to run lights out on some of these larger volume projects that we have.
Yeah.
And again, for the military and space area, that's definitely an advantage we have. So, especially with COVID, and, even though we weren't impacted, but companies who have manual operation or manual changeover would be impacted by that, by not having all of their staff on hand, where we weren't, because we can automate.
Yeah, that's the big part of it is, the digital thread and automation and what you can do inside of having that, like you were saying, just having that lights out operations, and that's, to define that a little bit better, it means the machines will be running night and day, without too much attention, hands-on attention. And that's kind of like, the industry 4.0 dream of where we need to go and where people are pushing for. So I know the advanced side of it really sticks out for Cam on that side. And like you said, CT scanning, most people outsource CT scanning. So to be able to do that in-house, that's going to improve a lot of time to market and really give people some security on what they're getting into when they're looking at their parts. Yep. So that's really nice to have that. That's really impressive, man. Where do you see things going from here? I mean, now that you've been with the company the last 6 months, like what are you responsible for, and what do you see pushing forward?
Yeah, so some of the things that I'm already doing it, but some of the things I look at for the future is, strategizing as far as our equipment and our lineup, our fleet. to match what the market demand is. And so we just recently, this hasn't even really been announced. This will be the first time publicly I've said anything.
Yeah.
So we just finished up a deal with EOS to bring in an M404.
Nice.
And as part of that deal, we switched out. We gave up one of our 280s, and we're bringing in a 404. So some of that is part of the strategy of aligning our equipment base for the production orders that we know exist and where we need to be to put ourselves in line with that.
Yeah, that's a 4 laser system, and like you said, it's a 400. So you're dealing with the 400 millimeter build area, which gives you about close to 16 inches cube there. But that's amazing. And with the 4 laser system, why are you focusing on the 4 laser system? What is that you're trying to get out of that particular system?
It's really not about the 4 lasers. It's more about the build volume.
Okay.
But the 4 lasers, there's a couple of ways at looking. Throughput is starting to be the issue in our industry, right? So, people for a long time have said our business is too slow, which is kind of funny that they say that because we're actually faster than just about every other method.
Yeah.
But what they mean is when you look at the machine and how the machine runs, it takes a lot of time in the machine itself. Forget about all the setup and other things that other industries, have to deal with, but the actual act of how long it's in the machine is quite long, and that's where that comes from. So there's a couple of ways to handle that. EOS did it with M400, but 1, which is a 1,000-watt laser, and that works for you can go in thicker layers. That's one way to get faster, and you need more power to be able to do that. But not all materials respond in a way where just more power works, right? So 4 lasers or more lasers is really the more effective way to speed up the process. And so even though right now we don't have necessarily a need for 4 lasers, really it's more the build volume that we need. The future is more lasers, right?
Yeah.
So, along those lines, we're waiting for delivery on our SLM 500 as well. So
nice.
That's another 4 laser machine, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we're completing a deal right now where we will most likely be the demo site for the SLM 800, which is bigger and also more lasers, right? So
exciting.
And that's one of the, when you ask me what do I do, those are some of the things that I've done is I've shifted us, as far as the company and the strategies that were involved, it was, more of a medium-sized platform business to now we're shifting into more of a large platform, more production-oriented business is what we're putting together. So that's some of the changes there. Along those lines, it comes with changing over a customer base too. And then, as I already said, one of the things I've been up against is, predominantly our industry was starting to feel like we were just race car manufacturers, which we're not. We actually have nothing to do with Brad's car. And most people don't know that, right? So that's part of the strategy work that I'm doing is to help us on the marketing side to correct some of that feeling in the marketplace and also align ourselves with the right customer base. And then in order to meet that customer base, it's the equipment base as well.
Big time. And I know your experience goes back a long way. I saw we had a couple things in common, definitely even on the design side and early in our careers. I know you started out in engineering and CAD design, and that was a lot of my beginning too in automotive and aerospace, and I'm sure that attributes to the kind of applications you could see and the things that you could recognize that other people maybe that were in your shoes or in that might be in that position couldn't quite do. So I think it has it's a good attribute to the background to have so much of the design side. Also, a lot of people are focused on just machines or machine sales, but they don't think too much about the design. And I've even heard you before talking to a couple of the live events recently where you talk about not only designing for additive, but just designing for manufacturing. Period.
Right.
What happens beforehand and what happens afterwards. So you want to talk a little bit more about that, because I think that is great. And a lot of people are just focused on DFAM, but it's so much more than design for additives. So
certainly. I mean, that's a complicated subject, and without being able to prepare, it's kind of muddled. But I mean, it is that is an important area to look at. I mean, just you could see a lot of people using topology optimization tools and there's two different camps there. Some people are all about topology optimization, where you have your old school engineers that say that's not how you go about design.
Right.
And I think where that comes from is exactly what you just said, is it's easy to topology optimize a part, but if you're not really looking at where this is going with production, how are you going to hold this? How are you going to inspect it? How can you do this repeatedly, in a production setting? That's important to look at. So even though you can lightweight a part, or you can add lattice structures, or you can do thin walls with lattice structure in between there's all kinds of advantages that we can do. And I love them all. But it's important to look at how are we going to produce that in a large volume setting.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you can't, but you have to take those considerations and understand how we're going to handle
Yeah, what affects it downstream and coming upstream from the design is a big part of it. When people get focused in their small world of just what's happening in front of them on the machine, sometimes they don't, hold it to account what can happen after it gets out of the machine and some other processes take hold of the part. And so it's that's a lot of the staggering that goes on sometimes is you print something, but then you find out, okay, when we set up on this fixture, it's not going to fit correctly. So we're going to have to change the design a little bit and go back and redo that. So I think that's very good to have that mindset of looking at, what's going to be happening down the road with this part. And we should think about how we're designing that now. And I think that's a large part of what you can do there. So it's exciting to see, using all of your tools now, how that can happen and how that actually affects the customer in a time to market basis of actually being more value right now to them. So I think Cam has a wonderful future on that. And I think it's a lot more than, you said, not a lot more than just the automotive side of it, although that is a big part of it too. There's so much more out there in the industry for manufacturing that Cam can grab a hold of and take care of. So I'm looking forward to seeing how all that plays out. It's an interesting time right now, though, with COVID happening, and I know you guys are doing a lot to bring things back up to plate and to really step up the game there. So looking forward to seeing how that plays out, Scott. It's going to be interesting. What have you been doing for your own time to keep yourself sane aside from working? You live close to there, or how far do you live from the facility?
Yeah, I do. Anybody who knows me in this industry knows that, I work hard, and work is play for me too. So, I probably work too much. But, once in a while, I try to get out on my jet ski and my boat.
Fun.
Those are things that we're fortunate to have relocated to a beautiful lake here in Lake Norman, and and I don't live too far from the lake, so that's nice. It's been a good transition, and those are some of the fun things we do. But I really truly do enjoy my work, and if somebody were to ask me what's my hobby is work, and my work is my hobby. So. I really do that. My wife probably doesn't appreciate that as much as I do.
Sure.
But that's my enjoyment. I enjoy working, and I love what I do.
Yeah, that's important. I think we share that. I really love the industry. I love manufacturing, and it takes up a lot of my time just being involved with as many projects as I can. So it's exciting to hear that. I know some people find that dull that aren't in the industry, but I think that's why we're here, is we love what we're doing. Yeah. And if you don't, you should probably move on to something else. But that's a big part of it for me too, buddy. But well, good. I think that's a lot of great stuff. Is there anything that you see or that you could talk about as far as exciting applications right now happening at CAM?
We have one of the big advantages in additive is heat exchangers. And so we have quite a few heat exchanger programs that we're looking at, and that's where the SLM 500, I gave that presentation not too long ago. And that's some exciting stuff there. In the motorsports world, there's some shock application, things like that, where we're working towards, and then military and defense, there's some interesting, exciting things going on there. But yeah, I think, what's really exciting is what we can do with heat exchangers. We're fortunate to have Robin Tallui, who's our, chief scientist, and he really comes from a background that's really good in understanding how to make things run better, how to improve on performance. And so we're starting to look at our own applications for heat exchanging. So, some of our own proprietary designs and things like that we're talking to, certain companies about adopting to. So, it's exciting. I mean, for me, the transition of me moving from where I was before to now has been really exciting because of the tools and the people that I have, now at my disposal. So it's exciting. It's a great place, and it's a really exciting venture for me.
Yeah, well, congratulations. I know that it sounds exciting to me just even talking about it right now. We talked about the heat exchangers there, and that's a big thing in additive. I know because we could build layer by layer inside of different, different build volumes or different places where you could put stuff where you couldn't quite fit things. And it's all about the surface area when you're building the heat exchanger.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really neat to look at all the different structures that I see out there coming out for heat exchangers and the different ideas, because it's always trying to fit that into a place where it needs to go. And so you're already working with a limited area. And then how could you take advantage of that entire area with some sort of surface that's actually absorbing or taking care of that heat? And additive is a big solution for that. It really fits the bill on what we could do layer by layer to make that happen. So I'm sure you're really excelling on what kind of applications you could do for heat exchangers there at CAM. That should be really neat to see some of those applications as they start to roll out. Well, cool. Well, it was great catching up today. I know you're a very busy man, so thank you for taking a little bit of time. And I know you guys even had it all hands on deck at launch today. So I'm sure there's a lot of great things happening, and looking forward to seeing more at CAM.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's every chance to talk to the community is a great opportunity, and I look forward to more talks like this.
Sounds good. Yeah, maybe we could wrap it up in a month or so. I know we had a couple different contract manufacturers out there that are buddies of ours we talk to, and we're talking about doing a group session in the future. So hopefully we could schedule that out as things progress and follow up, because I'd love to hear more about how things go as you guys progress along.
Yeah, no, looking forward to it.
All right, Scott. Well, you have a good day. Thanks for joining us. Scott Volk from CAM. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right.